2019 Summit Q&A replay. Should a new firm owner charge for a consultation? With Sam Mollaei, Maddie Martin, Mark Homer, Dave Aarons, and Jan Roos. Episode 180. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and this is the final 2019 Summit Q&A replay that we're going to be doing in this series. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, and our Law Firm Growth Summit 2021 is live. We are... Our opening keynote session starts at 10 a.m. Eastern, and if you're listening to this after that, hit pause on this, hurry over to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, click the button to register for your free pass. You will get an email telling you where to go to register on Hopin, and you can join us right now. We are live. If you're listening to this in the future, enjoy the episode. If you go over to the summit, come back and listen to this later. This is a great question that is posed by attorney Daniel Campen, who is one of our summit testimonials. Very excited for his growth, but he asked a lot of questions over the course of these Q&As, and this is one of them. And he wanted to know, should a new firm owner charge for a consultation? There's a lot of information that was provided in day 2 in the sales conversation about how important it is to charge for your time. And he felt that might be a barrier to entry for somebody who is fairly new and just trying to get their first clients through the door. Very interesting conversation, great responses, and great discussion that kicked off with Sam Mollaei's answer and was wrapped up with Jan Roos's. So we're going to play that for you in just a moment, but you want to make sure if you're not at the Law Firm Growth Summit right now, you want to head over there and you can get a ticket for free. There's no reason not to join us unless you're just not available. And if that's the case, opt in for the free ticket. And on the next page, you can purchase the VIP. The VIP is it's got our session recordings, so you'll get everything recorded and delivered to you, so you can listen to it at your own pace when you're ready. And we're excited. I mean, we're super excited for this event, even if it means just jumping in and attending our live concert that we're doing on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, or a live Q&A, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. So if you're not available during the day, join us for the evening stuff. We'd love to have you. lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. I'm going to cut over to a quick ad from our sponsors, LawFunder, and then we'll get to the Q&A. Here we go. Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profit with law to learn more. His question was directed to Jan and Mandy, but everyone may have input. In your sessions, you both mentioned that you believe that we should charge for our initial consultation in some fashion. Does that thought change when thinking about a new firm trying to grow client base? I think we kind of covered this, but we'll circle back around. Speaking about charging initially for a consultation, because we talked about it with Shahara, but we didn't necessarily focus on that aspect. What are the pros and cons of charging upfront for a consultation? What are some of the factors that somebody should think about, especially if they're a new practice, as far as charging for a consult? Anybody want to start here?
Definitely don't charge if you're starting out. Take on the calls, as many calls as you can, to understand your prospects, who they are, what they're saying, what questions they're asking you. Get as many calls in as you can, gather that information. And I think you should not charge unless if you're like completely booked 40 hours a week, should be at no point, because you should be delegating more than that. So I think the answer for me would be never charge. Also, if you're charging on an hourly basis, your time it's not scalable anymore. You're basically it's an hourly kind of basis. You're gonna tap out at some point. So instead, focus on building those systems to be able to leverage time to your advantage instead of trading it one for one.
Okay, Sam, I appreciate your input. I'd like to see if we have any dissenting opinions here. Is everybody in agreement that when somebody is starting out, they should not be charging for their consultations, or is there somebody who has another point of view on that?
I think that, you know what, it's not like a one size fits all thing. And I wrote this in the answer in the chat also, and I'll say it here. Like it depends on the market. It depends on what other firms are doing. It depends on your practice area. It also depends on like your mental bandwidth, because if you are in a family law practice, for example, and you're doing these consults all day long and you're not getting paid for them, and those are very, very stressful, sometimes draining consults, you may feel a little bit resentful, and that's not a nice feeling to have, especially early on in your own practice. So just be mindful and know the market. I'm inclined to say that it is a good practice to, again, control that conversation and value your time and have those conversations that are meaningful with those potential clients who are the right fit, because frankly, just a lot of data from all these people who want to talk to you, it's probably not going to shock you in that data collection what they want. And I'm not necessarily convinced that's the best use of your time.
Very, very helpful input, Maddie. I'm going to go to Mark and then to Dave.
So from a marketing perspective, if you're just starting out and you're looking to figure out what kind of content is going to be, moving the needle for your maybe search engine optimization, your paid ad, like all the stuff that you're driving leads to your website, if you're not just worrying about, networking and referrals, which still, way to start. Getting on the phone, having a pad of paper next to you and writing down every single question somebody asks for the first, few months is not a bad idea. You will get gold in terms of, like the content you can go generate for what you're already doing, right? You're answering the question on the phone. So you're already writing content every single day. Just hit the record button for half of it. So I think that getting people on the phone and getting that information and not, I think I'm with Dave on this, where if you are bringing cold traffic in, which if you're just starting out and you don't have a large referral base, you don't have a large networking going on, then the customer trust factor is really hard to turn over dollars. Now, and I know some people do it and some people do it successfully. Majority of our clients, when we put dollar gates in there, all the paid traffic certainly goes way down in terms of conversions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go over to Dave.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the major considerations is, do you have a standing relationship with the client? Do they know who you are? Have they been referred by a trusted friend or family member? Because If they have been, then they already know who you are, and they're already halfway through having the trust and the confidence in knowing that you're the person that they want to work with because their friend or family member said, you got to work with Mr. Homer or Mr. Ruse or Ms. McGrath or whoever it was, because they helped me through this case and they were there for me every step of the way, right? And so someone coming in that way through referral or something like that, or through a trusted source, is probably going to be willing to pay for that fee right away. Whereas if someone's coming and this is the very first time they've ever heard your name, there needs to be human contact. Now, does that mean that you need to be the first one to call them, right? Because there's a lot of different ways in which we can qualify a client, right? We can look at it from the standpoint of, do they have a case in the right jurisdiction? Is there conflict, right? So there's a number of different levels at which we can qualify a client, and we don't necessarily have to qualify based on price. There's basic conversation you can have with the client. You can look at the case. And the other thing is, you have to look at what it is you are trying to do. Now, if you are trying to create a funnel where you have an abundance of traffic and you're just trying to run a solo or small firm and just work with premium clients, and that's all you're really trying to build, and you'd rather turn away all the extra business of people that may not be the premium type of person, then that's probably a good strategy for you, because that's going to be a really good filter. It's like if a doctor gets really busy, what does he do? Well, he just raises his rates, right? Because he's not trying to hire and scale up a firm of doctors, right? Or hire staff and that kind of stuff. He just wants to see a certain amount of clients every day. And when he gets full, he just raises his prices, right? Or it puts additional barriers that is going to bring a higher premium client, right? So, but if your goal is, I want to maximize the reach of my firm, I want to maximize the scale of my firm and help as many clients as I possibly can, then you may not want to, then you want to think about ways in which you can create relationships and trust and get people engaged in your firm. That's going to maximize the amount of people that are going to be receptive to that, whether they know you or they don't, right? And that may be at least human contact, talking to them about the case, talking about the unique benefits of your firm. And the final piece is whether you're going to charge for a phone consultation or an office consultation, right? And those are two different things as well, right? Talking to someone briefly on the phone for 10 minutes, with a very clear, concise phone call that can easily be trained. We train our lawyers all day long to do a 10 to 15 minute maximum booking call to book them in the office and so forth. And again, this is lead generation. So the clients haven't met these attorneys yet. So they're going to do a quick 10 to 15 minute call. It's not going to be the usual 20 to 30 minute consultation or more. They're going to save that for the in-office consultation or a lengthy consultation. This is more just, what is it that you're needing specifically help with? What is your primary goal? Second, of course, then we educate about unbundled services. That's what our attorneys do. And then third is they're booking in the appointment. And attorneys, depending on how well they've educated on the value of the service or how well their staff is trained on educating the client on the benefit and value of what it is they're doing, they can then charge for that consult fee in the office, or they could even charge for a virtual session or whatever it is that you're specifically delivering once they've built the benefit and value of the service through that booking consultation. And then some people would just book it, for a free consult, and that's just that depends upon the unique firm, what it is they're trying to do, of course. So just a lot of different levels that you can look at it, and of course you're going to tailor that specifically to what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish in your firm.
Dave, thank you so much for all that insight, because there were some key nuggets in there, and Daniel will go back and listen to this a couple of times to really pull them all out. Does anybody else have anything to add? I have a number of bullet points I wrote down here that I want to cover in response to this as well. Go ahead, Jan.
Whoops, there we go. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to mention specifically because I think what I'd mentioned in the talk that we did was actually a pretty specific thing. And I want to illustrate some principles through this example. Ultimately, it's just basically how much friction do you want to put up versus how much volume do you want to have? And there's a lot of different levers on this. So in the case of a new firm, the biggest thing that you have to have, one of the biggest levers you have is the uniqueness of the service. So I believe the example that I used in my talk was actually a family law practice in Texas. Now the thing about this guy is that he had a couple aces in the hole. One was this guy dealt with high net worth divorces and had a track record that was really, really tough to counter in that. So yeah, and this is actually on paid traffic, which, I know we've kind of talked about that being tough, but even that can be overcome. So, bear in mind fully that this is somebody who's showing up against 4 other top Google ranks, or in the Google 4-pack, there's literally 4 other people that all say free consultation. But this guy's brand is so strong, and more importantly, we're able to communicate it in the options that we have for the copy on both the ad and the landing page, that we're able to get people to pay $100 to $300 versus whether it's him versus an associate for something that other people are charging for free. Another specific thing is that we didn't go ahead and say free consultation, because a consultation versus a free consultation, you'd have to be an idiot to pay for something that's free, right? So what we basically said was, here's, call us for our, your winning divorce game plan. Now, if we're talking about a free consultation from, some other attorney versus a winning divorce game plan with somebody who has all of his bona fides and accolades right there, then we don't necessarily, now we have more pull. It's like any sort of negotiation. There's points of leverage. And I know I kind of mentioned that just to talk about the general case, but there's also, I think I mentioned this in the previous thing. If you have something that's, are we talking about something that's a commodity or something that's not? If you're somebody who just started your practice, there are instances in which you'd have you'd be the only person to talk about a certain subject and then charge whatever you want, right? If I can talk about, I'm trying to think, there's we were interviewing with a guy who was a prospect. He's one of the leading experts on, marijuana business law. If I can pay $300 for an hour of the time for somebody who specializes in this versus get a free consultation from a general business attorney, depending on how dire my situation is, I'll pay for the specific advice every time. But again, you got to support that. You got to communicate that. And if you don't have that, I would say it's probably better off not charging for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification and that feedback. And I like the way that you put that into, that there's different forces at play here, and you have to understand what they are from a marketing perspective and figure out which is the lever that you want to be pulling on. I want to cover a few things here. First of all, if you have multiple solutions and the path that you want to take them on might be dependent on that consult, and some of the solutions are for the more economically conscious clients, but you have a solution for them, then that might be something to consider, that a free consultation is the right thing. So for example, I still use a free coaching session for a potential client in my business, even though I preach to attorneys to charge for consults. Now, the reason that I do a free coaching session is because I have 3 different paths that somebody can take. They can work with me one-on-one. They can work in a group coaching session, a group coaching capacity, or they can go into a product that's already created. So if they're going to go into the product, they don't have a lot of money to spend, and therefore charging initially is going to push them away. At the same time, if they're going to be a one-on-one client, I'm going to be charging them $40,000 for the year. I'm not worried about that initial consultation fee. So depending on the business model, that's going to affect how you treat that initial consultation as well. Speaking about business models, somebody asked in the chat, and this is a good point, if you're taking on clients on contingency basis, then charging for a consultation works opposite the idea of contingency. So you have to understand what is it that they're coming to you for. If that's your business model, then you probably want a free consultation because that's part of the way that whole thing works. So look at what you're doing holistically in the business to try to figure out whether this is the right thing for you. Some of the other points Carol Williams put in there, Rachel Brenke put in there, it elevates the quality of the client you're bringing in. It elevates your status in the relationship by charging up front. So if that's what you're trying to do, if you don't want the people who are going to be turned away by that initial consultation fee, then put it there, because that'll eliminate the people you don't want. So you also have to be very clear on who it is that you're looking for and make sure that that's aligned with what you're doing up front. The other thing is the sales versus consultation conversation, which Dave did a really good job explaining. And on day 4, Seth Price, we talk about that at length because he's got a team of people on the phone. He's a 40 attorney firm, and they have a team of people on the phone taking that initial call and doing that initial screening process. It's not a consultation, it's a sales call. And that's really what we're talking about. You don't want to be giving advice for free. You don't want to be giving away the stuff that you spent years honing in between law school and the work that you're doing, and then give that for free. but you also want to figure out, is this person a good fit? And help them figure out if you're a good fit for them. That doesn't have to include legal advice. So if we take away the word consultation and say sales call, now it's a totally different conversation. So I think that we need to get clear on what's being covered in that discussion. In my example, I do a free coaching session. I actually don't give any advice in a free coaching session. What I do is I listen to their problems and I tell them I can solve those problems. Do they want to work with me to solve it? Right? So we spend 45 minutes to an hour and a half together, but that entire time is fleshing out and helping them get really clear on what their problem is. I don't actually provide a solution. So it essentially is a sales call too, but I call it a free coaching session. So I think it's really, really important to get clear on where does the call cross the line between sales and consult, and perhaps you can separate the two. And you can have that initial sales. Maddie, I'll get to you in 1 second. My last point that I wanted to make is, how niche are you? I had a client who was extremely niche. She was in rage porn. That's what she dealt with. So there's nobody else doing that. If there's nobody else for them to go to, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to worry. They're not going anywhere else. So she charged a consultation fee, a decent consultation fee up front, because if you want to solve your problem, it's going to cost money to talk to us. End of story. So depending on your niche that you've selected, if you're that unique that there really isn't another option for them to go to, then that also plays into it. So there's so many factors at play. And I think you need to take a look at your business model and where you want to be and let that decide the direction that you're going to go. Maddie, over to you.
So I think one thing here that can help with the screening process is to have lead magnets that are actually really effective in people telling you who they are and what they want and what their need is. And the best example of this, I talk about this really often, is Connor Mollaei at Tri-City Legal, where he basically in Chicago was working for landlords who needed to evict tenants. And they were searching for how to evict tenants online and eviction notice and whatever. And they thought that they were going to do it themselves. And sometimes they do. But what he created is a form online. He used Gravity forms. You can use Typeform, whatever. And he mapped the actual city of Chicago eviction notice, asking for the landlord's info, the tenants, how much rent was due, what type of notice they wanted to create. And then they'd fill out the information and get a filled PDF with that information to their email with directions for how to submit it themselves. And wouldn't you know it, but that was basically their entire marketing program, because it generated such great leads when they would follow up with them right before the notice was due and say, hey, did you take care of your stuff? Do you need help? And they are already grateful to you and going to respond to you, and probably way more trusting of you because you've delivered them something of value already, and you delivered on your promise to send them that PDF by email already, and they literally had no other marketing strategy other than that lead magnet, and they owned search. So that to me is a really great way of giving something of value and getting the best potential leads in your funnel who are absolutely worth following up with, who are absolutely the population you already know, because who's going to be filling out that form other than the landlord that they want to work with?
I would be remiss if I didn't, thank you, those are really, really valuable comments, Maddie, but I would also be remiss if I didn't mention this. And that is that if a lot of lawyers are offering services that are, thousands of dollars up front, one of the main reasons why people might not be moving forward with the consultations is you might just be too expensive. And there's ways in which you can begin to offer more creative service options that are going to be a better fit for the client's budget. Like offering unbundled services or doing things one task at a time. This is not going to be a fit for all practice areas. There's people on this call that are doing contingency. There's people that are doing business law. That isn't applicable, but there's a lot of ways in which we can start to use technology to deliver one service at a time, provide services like advice, coaching, drafting documents, making one appearance, giving people options where they can put a payment down, make payments over time, and set up payment plans and so forth. And that may not be in your strategy for your firm. You might be trying to maximize, hey, I want to reach the top 10% of income earners and that's it. But if you're thinking about trying to build out a scalable firm, we have a lot of big firms where they're white shoe firms that are looking at the marketplace and going, 75% of people in a lot of these courts are, in a lot of these different practice areas, are not actually accessing a lawyer right now. So how do we go about reaching that market too? And their standard firm is 10K, and they've got that market, well handled. But then now they're looking at, well, how do we start to serve people that can only afford $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, right? And so when you're having these consultations and they're not moving forward, well, why maybe are they not moving forward? Why are they tire kicking? Well, it's maybe because you're charging $5,000 up front, right? So you might also want to start thinking creatively about the types of service options you're offering so that you can start to appeal to a wider market. And whether you're the attorney that does that or not, you could also have an associate in your firm that's going to be offering these unbundled services or more creative service options. There's a lot of different ways to scale where it may or may not be just you, but there's so many more ways in which you can start to, nowadays, when we're talking about technology and streamlining these legal services, to start offering service options that more people can afford. And maybe you'll have a lot less people that are tire kickers are just looking for price, go, hey, wow, that price is tremendous and I can afford that. And moving forward with hiring your services, that's certainly what we find with a lot of the clients that come through us to do our unbundled attorneys is they've talked to 4 other lawyers, couldn't afford them, then they're hiring the unbundled attorney.
And I want to go back to something that Dave just said and just couch it another way so that you can really bring this home. And I think that'll probably help us end this discussion. At the end of the day, we're having a conversation about how do you close a client? How do you get somebody to part with their dollars and give it to you? Once you get them to spend money with you, they now have that relationship with you of the client and attorney relationship. It doesn't matter if you got them to spend $10 to buy a book from you, or if you got them to spend $5,000 on a retainer. The hardest work is getting them to part with that dollar. Once they do that, that changes the relationship between you and the client. And how much easier is it to get them to pay for a consultation than to get them to sign a retainer? And that's where I think that you need to start thinking about this. It is a filter. It is a way of protecting your time and elevating yourself. But it's also a way to close a sale that you otherwise would have much more resistance closing. And that's where I think that even if you're doing free consultations, you should figure out a way to charge for something at the beginning that is a flat fee to get them started before going into a bigger retainer relationship, unless you don't have that friction. So it really depends on what your experience is. But at the end of the day, understand that the science of a sale is how do I get them to open their wallet and give me money? And it doesn't matter how much that money is. That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.